Welcome back, everyone, to the Vikings Playbook, and it's Week 18. It's our last game of the season. I do have a special guest with me that's been with me before on podcasts, but I want to welcome to the stage Mark Anderson. Mark, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing amazing. Always good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Now, Mark, last time, you and I were on a podcast. We weren't winning as many games, and now we're 8-8, and now we're in a situation where, yes, we don't have as high of a draft pick, but at least the development, especially of our young quarterback JJ McCarthy, has definitely improved since the last time we spoke. Um, what's your feeling as far as going into this game? We're 8-8, and just what's your feeling right now in the Viking season
It's
as it
much
comes
better
to
than it
an end?
was. Back last time we talked. It's much better than it was. I'm looking forward to it. I want them to win out. Get that
Mhm.
5 game winning streak. Get that. Even though it's the end of the year, just see JJ progress and stay healthy.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And week 18, the Packers come into this game. Obviously, we're eliminated from the playoffs, even though we can come out of this with a winning record and be 9-8 to finish the season. The Packers come into this game actually having the playoffs already locked up for them. So our tail of the tape, Packers versus Vikings. Again, they're 9-6-1. This is really for them. I wouldn't say a meaningless game because it's still a border battle game and where you want to beat the Vikings and the Vikings want to beat the Packers. Both teams don't like each other and neither team wants to see the other one come out on top. So, for sure, this game still has meaning to it for the Packers, even though they will be resting some players in this game. They have some young players they want to take a look at, and at the same time, they're still going to be aggressive in winning this game. I had an article that came out earlier on this to where I talked about this, and the Vikings have a lot more to play for in this game, believe it or not, than the Packers do. So the Vikings, they're 8-8 coming into this game. And you look at these metrics. Yes, the Packers have had a better overall season, but their season has been up and down as well. That one tie, they would be, a game away from being in the boat to where we get into a closer tiebreaker situation here down to the last game of the season. So the Vikings defense sitting at 16th, again, still deceiving. I talk about this every week, but it's still
mhm.
deceiving because that defense has played a lot better than 16th. It's really just they've been put in really tough positions and can't get off the field because of the inefficiencies that the offense has had most of the year. But at least with JJ McCarthy in weeks 14 through 16, that offense was really clicking. And in this game, we're going to get JJ McCarthy back, and it's his last shot to really put on a display in his last audition, if you will, for next season. What are your thoughts coming into this game on JJ McCarthy, and as far as what you would like to see, with just the
Mm,
Vikings in general in this game?
I want to see him just start fast. You know
Mhm.
what? You win. I like the way they've been doing. We win the coin toss, we take the ball. That's usually against common wisdom, but it's a way to get him going. Throw a couple of quick outs, throw the screens, get JJ, both of them, involved right away. Get Jefferson in there, get that going, and just give him that confidence, right? Give McCarthy that confidence that he can
Right.
throw that. He's thrown some really nice balls lately. When you look at what's progressed with him, he was always fastball only, and I've seen him. We've seen him, come in and as they, use the term, layered some nice passes in there. Was floating some in there the last game that he played before he got hurt. Like, dang, okay, I'm seeing progress. So I don't care in the NFC North. I don't care how what your records are. Good, bad. It's always a battle. It always comes down to just the one or two plays. I just hope we make them this time.
Yeah. And when we take a look at the injury report, we mentioned JJ McCarthy. He's cleared. He's available to play. Will start with that hand. But when we take a look at a lot of the players that you're going to see some bigger name players and some that aren't mentioned. like Micah Parsons, which we know he's done for the year. But on this list, there's some big players that are out of this game that won't play for the Packers. The ones that are doubtful, like Dontavian Wicks, if they don't have to play them, they're not going to play them in this game. Same thing with those that are questionable. If they don't have to play them now, cleared with Jordan Love, he's not starting in this game either. So it is interesting as far as what we will see from the Packers. I still think that they're going to try to win the game, like I said, but they have
Absolutely.
quarterback Clayton Tune that's going to be their starter this week. So, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the game. But when we take a look at the Vikings and who they have on their injury report, we won't see TJ Hawkinson, no Aaron Jones, which, now this allows a couple different things. So Aaron Jones being out, we get to see more of Jordan Mason on display, because he's dealt with some injury stuff that he had back in the Giants game, so now we get to see him on display without Aaron Jones. So he gets a little bit more game tape, and that helps us to figure out some things on running the ball. No Miles Price. So Ty Felton, maybe Ty Chandler getting a little bit more opportunities with return duties. And I think, I was really hoping Gavin Bartholomew would play in this game because I wanted to see at least a little bit of him, even if it was just a pass or two going his way. I wanted to see him on the field, but we won't get that opportunity. Questionable is Dwight McGlothern with this one. And then he's cleared available. We'll see if we get to see Harrison Smith, play in this game. I mean, he's cleared available, but that doesn't mean that he's going to play in this game. Just like with the Packers, Josh Jacobs and Jaden Reed. Josh Jacobs have been dealing with that left knee injury. Why play him if you don't have to? Let him rest before the playoffs. So I don't expect to see him. Same with Jaden Reed unless they have to. I really don't expect those individuals to play, but that's our injury report for week 18. So there's definitely a few names on that list. Now, before we get into our keys of the game and anything like that, now, if you have a question for either myself or our special guest that we have, Mark Anderson, on the show with us, please make sure that you put those in the comments for us. And yeah, if you're on Facebook watching this right now, please jump over to YouTube. You can follow us at Vikings Playbook. And you can go ahead and drop a question on X or YouTube. Just right now, the Facebook will allow you to drop the questions where I can see them live. So please make sure that you go ahead and jump on YouTube or on X to drop those comments. So as we get into the matchup this week and the keys to the game, I wrote about that, and this got published today on, I also write for purpleptsd.com. And this is one of the articles that I wrote about today, is why this border battle is more than it looks. It feels like a different game than it typically is as a border battle, but there's still a lot of meaning with it. So yes, we're going to talk about it here in this podcast, but if you'd like to read more, please go to Purple PTSD and support myself and some of the other writers that we have over there and Vikings Territory. Now, breaking this down, these are the different keys to the game that I identified that I want to break down a little bit with you, Mark. And, again, if you have other ones you want to talk about, certainly bring them up. Keys to the victory that we want to talk about: play JJ McCarthy's strengths. So playmaking calls, we'll talk about those. Establish the run to control the tempo. Win early downs on defense. Eliminate those self-inflicted mistakes and finish strong in situational football. Those are the key things that I want to talk about with you today, Mark. And let's go ahead and just jump into this first one. And let's talk about JJ McCarthy's strengths and what they need to do to try to evaluate. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up with this is I feel like, and this is, tell me if I'm wrong, I want the Vikings to play this game just like any other game.
Yes.
Okay? So he's had injury problems throughout the season. 3 different times he's went out with injuries this season. So if he can't stay healthy, that adds even more concern. But I want to see them play him like they normally would. Yes, our offensive line has been shorthanded, injured. So run those plays that we normally run that are going to protect the quarterback. But I want them to play, like it's a regular season game. So play to his strengths, which are design rollouts, getting him out there in the open where he can use his legs as a weapon. And I feel like he passes a little bit better at times, even as of late, anyways, when he's out there on the run. He's
Yes.
more dangerous with his legs and more time for our receivers to get open. And then also, as we've seen, I want him to keep testing his boundaries and taking some deep shots down the field. So I want him to show us what he's got in this last game before we go into the offseason. I want the Vikings to take a look at all of this game tape throughout the season. That way they can give him a plan of what he needs to focus on in the offseason. Justin Jefferson has talked about, getting together with JJ McCarthy, which is great because if not, somebody in the coaching staff, definitely needs to go just for that alone. But those two guys getting together. So what should they be working on? So that's one of the things that I think they need to focus on with JJ McCarthy.
I agree with that. I like the rollouts. Give him some of those options. While it takes away part of the field, the whole, he rolls to one side, it takes away half the field because, that's where the players are, et cetera. It gives him that flexibility to do the running, to use his legs. We've seen him use his legs a number of times and get those touchdowns, and get those first downs. And, sometimes it scares me when he's doing that dive for the first down head first. But it's showing that he knows where the line is and he wants to get there. It's that competitive fire, but that play to his strengths. And I feel that just a little bit I've seen of him, I think he plays better playing faster, with a more of an up tempo. Yeah.
Yep.
Just at a pace, when he sits back in the huddle and we're killing time, it's almost like his mind starts running earlier in the season. I think he's gotten much better at that.
Remember, that's my number two, right? My number two talks about that tempo, right?
Right. Get that tempo going. Right. I didn't mean to jump to number two, but at the same time,
you're right.
It's that process and flow, because I just, when you watch him throughout the season, it really was, if the team was on tempo and they kept that down going and they weren't just standing around waiting for the next thing to happen, he stayed more focused, I felt like. And so I think that's where I was talking about some of those just to begin with. Throw those quick outs. He's got the arm to get the outs out there. Where's the slant? Throw a quick slant. Get Jefferson on a slant first play. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that McCarthy has, he's been able to show that he's on this trajectory of growth, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great that we want to see that. Now, recently, Kevin Seifert just came out with a report, and it talks about, the Vikings possibly bringing in a veteran arm to compete with McCarthy. So, and again, that's vague. I haven't really heard that from, Kwesi as far as, but I feel like this game is going to help determine what level of player they feel like they need to be bringing in. And obviously through the off season, as it gets closer, maybe that helps determine some things too. But I don't think this is going to be somebody that we acquire through the draft. I think this is going to be, if they bring in somebody to compete, not saying that they couldn't draft a player. I don't think that they will high.
Right.
But I think that they will bring in, somebody that's of a veteran caliber. Now, whether that is somebody that they intend to potentially start and how much that person is to push him, I think depends on what they see as well in this last game. Now, I don't know how healthy the hand is,
right?
But he needs to go out there. Yeah, I mean, but this is his last audition to put something on tape to leave that last impression throughout the offseason on GM, coaches, fans, media, whatever you will, as far as who the Vikings decide to bring in. So he needs to continue that development trajectory he's on, that he's displayed, weeks 14 through 16 before he got injured here this last time. So, command the offense, extend drives, no crazy turnovers, right?
Right.
And show that he can be accurate with the football. And I talked about this in my article, but probably wouldn't hurt too much to throw that additional 53 plus yards that Justin
Yes.
Jefferson needs to reach that 1,000-yard receiving mark for the 6th straight year. And this is his 6th year in the league. So every year he's reached 1,000 yards. So Kevin O'Connell doesn't want to see that broken on his watch. So I definitely, two ways of thinking about this. I definitely think the Vikings are going to make sure that he gets opportunities to get to the 53 yards. And even though the Packers are resting players, be damned if they're going to let
They don't want it
him.
on their watch.
Absolutely, they want to stop him.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's still going to be a fun watch in this game as far as how that battle goes on as well. So let's move on to number 2 because you talked about it already. Establishing the run and controlling the tempo. And
Yes.
I'll let you go ahead and jump into this first, but running the ball.
Running the ball. You've got to. And part of that, as I was never a great player, but I played offensive line. And to be able to block downhill on the runs helps you get that same establishment as the offensive line. We talk about how banged up they are, and doing that by establishing that run and forcing your will upon the other opponent gets them back on their heels a little bit. So then when you do run the pass, they're already back a little bit. You get that extra little half step in there. So getting Mason to run, and I love his running style. Mm-hmm. I would actually like to see Xavier Scott come in. I love Ty Chandler, but I see Scott's got some moves, right? Mm-hmm. It's that a little bit of change of pace, right? To see some of those blocks. The biggest concern is, can they block like Aaron Jones when it is a passing down, right? And so that's the other side of that one. But by getting that run going and getting 4 or 5 yards on that first down or the second down, depending on, I'm not saying run on first down every time because that gets predictable. You got to change that up. But by establishing that early, I think you just establish the tempo up front.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly who's all going to be officially starting this game on the offensive line, but I think it's an opportunity to also evaluate our offensive line depth. Mm-hmm. Justin School is going to be starting at left tackle potentially, either School or Brandell. We'll see, and then Michael Juergens maybe, at center. I mean, we'll see. I think another thing to look at is to me. I mean, I don't know who they like and prefer there over Juergens or Brandell, but I'd like to see Blake Brandell start this game at center.
He played well there.
Yeah, and I think he could potentially be the starter at the center position. And I think Ryan Kelly has played his last game in a Vikings uniform with all the concussions. He's had 6 of them, 3 of them this season. We just can't keep going back to that well. And he's got to think about his health at the same time. But running backs, offensive line, I think the evaluation there needs to happen. Aaron Jones is getting older. He's going to be in his last year of his contract next year. Jordan Mason, is that a good fit for us? And then it could be the last opportunity for our Vikings running backs like Ty Chandler.
Yep.
This could be his last game in a Vikings uniform as well. He's trying to put something on tape too, and maybe even regain his footing as that third running back. So it's an opportunity for him. And like you said, Xavier Scott, let's see more of him. Now we have seen him play lately because of injuries, to either Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones over the last few weeks. So we have seen Xavier Scott play a little bit. Nothing, that really pops out or stands out to me lately. But I know that you mentioned it. Blocking was an issue that he had back in training camp in preseason, so we want to see that improve as well. So opportunities to run the ball. I think this Vikings offense, as we've seen, moves a lot better when there's a balance in it. So that's one of the keys, is especially not only the key to the game, but something we want to see for development going into 26.
Yeah. Now, well, I'm okay with, really quick, the design runs for McCarthy. Do a quarterback draw.
Sure.
Right? We really haven't seen too many of those.
Sure. I mean, like we saw in the Dallas game,
Yes.
I think more teams will be looking for that now.
Right.
But yes, I mean, with his injury history, I say play it straight up, but obviously we don't want to put him to situations where he's diving head first. Hey, unless you're going in for the end
Right.
zone, you're really close to first down. I want you to
Yes.
slide, my guy.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
if it's first down and you scramble, you don't need to dive head first to get that extra half yard to get the
yep.
first down. Save yourself, but it's I like the competitiveness to it. But
Mhm.
just get him out there running as well, because that opens up so many other things.
Right. Vikings key number 3, we need to win early downs on defense. So
Yes.
what I mean by that is, obviously we need to get Clayton Tune. Clayton Tune has not yet thrown a touchdown in the NFL. He's played one game. He was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. He's thrown 3 interceptions. He's started one game. So,
Mhm.
I fully expect Brian Flores to disguise those blitzes and send some different pressures to see how he reacts and try to force him into costly mistakes.
Yep.
This could, on the defensive side of the ball, this could be a repeat of what we saw or worse against the Lions.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, that was Jared Goff and the
Right.
Lions offense this defense was facing. Um, I'm sorry, but Clayton Tune, you're not on the same level as Jared Goff.
No.
And you know, I, I just think that this does have an opportunity for the Vikings to, if I was looking at this game and if I was, and I'm not telling anyone to go bet on it. Yeah, I'm definitely taking the Vikings in this game. They have JJ McCarthy back. The offense was moving good with him there. That Vikings defense looked, you know, uh, just demonstratively better than the Lions last
Mhm.
week. I mean, that was embarrassing if you're a Lions fan. So going into this game, you're resting starters as Packers. Clayton Tune has yet to throw a touchdown. Um, yeah, it doesn't look good for the Packers offense going against this Vikings defense. So we're on the early downs. Make Clayton Tune try to beat you.
Yes.
And I don't think that's a recipe for success for any NFL team.
No.
Um, and yes, that absolutely is a shot at Clayton Tune. And I'm not saying he can't come in there and make some plays, but um, the experience isn't there. And obviously he hasn't risen to even a number 2 QB position on
Mhm.
any rosters. So I didn't even know he was on the team for the Packers. I know they picked up Desmond Ritter,
Yep.
for this game too. So, I win early downs, make Clayton Tune try to beat you, and I think you're going to win that most of the time,
Yep.
especially with Brian Flores operating and pressing the buttons in the
Yeah,
background.
absolutely. You definitely, in this case, for like you said, stop the run. Focus on getting that run stop and those early downs and making them throw. And I think if you really get them into throwing, we get up a lead, we make them throw. That's going to be a key as well.
Mhm. All right, so Vikings key number 4, eliminate those self-inflicted mistakes, and that's a JJ McCarthy thing.
Mhm.
That's a special teams, punt return, kick return, not fumbling the ball, not costly penalties.
The
We're
dumb
at home.
penalties.
We're at home, right?
Mhm.
So, yes, we got a couple new or at least backups. Do we really call them backups at this point? Because
No,
they've played
I think they
more
played more
than
than
their
some of the
starters,
starters. Yes.
So I think Justin School has, he's probably number 3 as far as most games played this season or even started as an offensive lineman this year. So again, I'm just saying, you know, fall
the
starts,
the false
cost.
starts.
Yep. I
Yep.
mean, that's the kind of stuff that we want to get out of there. Uh, don't be, you know, just stupid throws. Be safe with the
Yep.
ball. Learn to
Mhm.
throw it away if you're JJ McCarthy, and live to see another play.
Yeah, there's that fine line of that self-inflicted with McCarthy that I think he sometimes go to kind of go back to him and put him in his comfort zone. I
Mhm.
think he sometimes though needs to understand throwing to Jefferson on a 50-50 ball isn't a horrible play.
Yeah, no,
in that
it's
scenario.
not. It's not, and I think he's thrown up some of those type of balls. I mean, we
Yep.
saw that in the Giants game, right in the breadbasket of Jordan Addison.
Yes.
But you know, I guess we could put it in this category for the self-inflicted mistakes of receivers catching the ball
Catch the ball.
and not it hitting your hands and into
Yes.
a Debo, for the
Yes.
Giants, the cornerback
Yeah.
for the Giants, Paulson Adebo, right into his hands for an interception. Costly turnovers like that. Um, almost a second one by Naylor almost
Yeah.
went for a touchdown, like a
Yep.
90-yard
Yep.
touchdown. So plays
If it
like that,
wasn't for a penalty.
let's eliminate those and, try to flip. I mean, this should be a game where the Vikings are able to flip the turnover battle on its head, and they should come out on top on that one.
On the turnover, I hope to go back to that one for a second. I
Yeah.
hope Harrison Smith plays. I want to see him get interception 40. I know it's not in this key to the game, but
No,
the
I
turnover.
have that. I have that in my article as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he's sitting on 39. This could be
Yep.
Harrison Smith's last game that he plays in a Viking uniform. So we want to see safety Harrison Smith go into the Hall of Fame someday, which I think he will.
I think so.
But it'd be kind of, obviously it would be a little bit of a sweetener to have that even or more number 40 interceptions when you're being considered for the Hall of Fame. So I definitely think he has a resume to get there. As probably, I would say at least probably in maybe the top 10 of
Yeah.
greatest safeties to ever play the game. I'm trying to be as non-biased as I possibly can there. So I'll say top 10.
Right.
But he's an amazing player, and Brian Flores and KOC have talked about it as far as, what he allows the defense to do. So, yeah, I'd like to see him get 40 as well on Sunday. Key number 5, finish strong at situational football. We're probably more talking about, some of those key situations where it's third and short on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. But, primarily we want to execute and finish strong in the red zone.
Yes.
So our red zone efficiency, it's been getting better and better with JJ McCarthy in those last 3 weeks that he played. It's been getting better, and that's good to see. And I think a lot of that has to do with, the play calling as well. So I think this game is just as much of an exercise, in my opinion, for the players as it is for the coaching staff. Continue to work on their different play calling and how they use the weapons that they have, such as Jordan Mason in short yardage situations, the Vikings offensive line, as far as trying to get better chemistry, when we keep switching out these combos.
Yeah.
And then JJ McCarthy, executing, hitting your throws in those key situations. And we've had numerous now this season touchdowns from receivers that were not being hit by a defender, but wide open and balls hitting them right in the hands in the end zone. So finish strong in those situations. If that ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch it. So I want to see a grittier 2 on Sunday, and we need to finish strong.
Yeah, that's just it. As I was reading some stats, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but like Addison, I think he had like 8 drops, total coming into this season, and he's already got 8 or 9 this season. And it's just like, you got to catch the ball, which is, back to that. Hey, it's 3rd and 6, and you catch it. You're out 8 yards, and it hits you in the hands, and you drop it. We've just seen too many of those.
Most quarterbacks have receivers around that 3 to 5% drop rate. Incredibly enough, JJ McCarthy's drop rate with his receivers is at like 11 plus.
Yeah,
so that's extremely high. And early on in the season, yes, I would have attributed some of that to JJ McCarthy, and sometimes as fast as he throws the ball, it is more difficult as far as the time you have as a receiver to adjust to the football to catch it. But what we have seen with the drops in weeks 14 through 16, especially that Giants game, that is on the wide receivers.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though Addison in the end zone, the one that he was falling down, but they caught him right there. I mean, yes, he adjusted his body to catch it, but that hit you in the hands and in the body going to like you had it
just cradle it.
100%.
Yeah.
You had it 100%.
Yep.
So stuff like that. I mean, but what we've seen in the later half of the season, that has not been on for the most part, that has not been on JJ McCarthy for the majority of those drops we've seen in the second half. The first half, yes.
Yes.
And I think some of that is the familiarity as far as how JJ throws the ball and getting injured. So you're dealing with different quarterbacks and how they throw, catching different balls. Justin Jefferson, when JJ came back, they didn't have as much time in training camp because of the injury. So that's another reason for this offseason and getting with the wide receivers, throwing the ball, getting those wide receivers used to catching a JJ McCarthy football.
Yes. No, I agree with that. And so that's that finish strong is, in those spots, you got to catch it. In those third and shorts, you got to beat the guy in front of you.
Now I had an article come out with this one as well. And yesterday, the big one that I want to talk about is Playbook Podrigs. So Brian Flores, what's next with or without Brian Flores? So he is without a doubt, he has been one of the biggest contributors as far as why the Vikings have been in games. So Brian Flores and 100%. His defense, has been keeping us in games that we should have never even been in. And I always think about that Ravens game that, yes, we didn't win, but the fact that we even had an opportunity to possibly win that game just blows my mind because we shot ourselves in the foot numerous times in that game to where we should have been out of it. But the defense, they were on the field for over half the time and still found a way to keep us in long enough to where the offense could kind of catch up. And at least you're like, wait a minute, we have a chance. And that felt like the story all season. Yep. I can, there's probably 2 games I can think of where, hey, we're just out of it. And that was when we played the Packers in Lambeau and when we played the Seahawks. Other than that, it feels like every game this year we've been in it.
Well, even the Seahawks game, the defense played well.
Absolutely.
We just didn't have an offense, right? And so
arguably we played well enough on defense to win that game.
Right. If we, I can't say we would have won that game had McCarthy played. And I'm not trying to throw Max under the bus at all, but it felt like that game where it's like, man, if we'd have had any offense at all.
Darnold did not play well in that game.
No, he didn't. He looked like the Darnold that finished last season.
Rams Darnold. He looked like LA Rams Darnold.
The unfortunate part, he's looking okay tonight.
Yeah. But that's he's the reason, And
yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm selfish that I want him back, but would love to see him as a head coach. Right. Yeah. I'm definitely selfish from that perspective.
Yeah. So, put yourself in Brian Flores' shoes. Now, Brian Flores, he's got his family, his wife and kids in Minnesota. You got him in school. It's always tough moving, right? And that's tough for the kids to uproot your family, And yes, you kind of would like another crack at being a head coach, but at what cost? Yes. So what team comes calling? Is it a good situation? Do you end up in a Jared Mayo type situation where you go in for a year, it's a disaster of a situation, and kind of like what, possibly even what the Browns have going on. It's getting better, but you still have Deshaun Watson there, right? But just like you go into a bad situation, is that worth it to leave Minnesota where you've built and grew relationships with players and KOC and the other coaches and your family likes it here? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
And all the talk about Brian Flores taking another defensive coordinator job like in Dallas, please. That's not happening. You're going to uproot your family for the same job and start all over with a defense that isn't set up for you?
No.
where you have the ability and the influence here in Minnesota to kind of pick your players like you did with Isaiah Rodgers, and I feel like going forward, there's a couple options that I talked about in my
Mhm.
article on PTSD, purpleptsd.com. So offer him, obviously, you got to pay the man, right?
Yes.
So offer him that contract extension, make him one of the highest, if not the highest, defensive coordinator in the league. Second, I think there's two ways you can do this. He can still call, but be the assistant head coach.
Yes.
Now, this may not be super popular because the person that currently holds that position is Mike Penn. I get it, but if I have to choose, if that's going to make
Mhm.
him stay, somebody's got to go. It's probably going to be you, Mike.
Yes, I
I want
agree.
to keep Brian Flores, and that's if you can see keeping him long term. Obviously, you don't want to
Right.
remove Mike Penn from that position if you don't think you have a chance to keep him long term. But if that's something else that keeps him not just for a year, but maybe
No.
there's a commitment that we can get longer, and I don't know
Yeah.
if that's possible or not. And then give him more influence on the construction of the roster than he
Mhm.
already has. Help. You know, he knows what he's doing. He knows what type of players or who he wants. So give him a little bit more input on that roster construction, especially when it comes into the draft, free agency, and trades. And continue to sell that vision of what it looks like winning in Minnesota and what you're trying to,
Mhm.
build. He has that good relationship. He's not going to go to Dallas and start over with different,
No, different.
have a different relationship and less say with Jerry Jones,
Mhm.
um, and and Schottenheimer there. So it's just not happening.
Right.
So again, I think the only reason he leaves is if he just sees like that dream head coaching job, like a Pittsburgh
Yes.
type situation, where I don't think that's happening this season,
No, I don't think it's
anyways.
this season.
But unless it's a dream position, I just don't see him leaving.
No, because you look at it, you look at Aaron Glenn versus Ben Johnson, right? They both left the Lions.
Yep.
Well, one landed in a good spot,
Hmm.
with a young growing team, and one ended up
Yeah.
with the Jets.
Yeah. Right.
and I
Right.
don't, right? I think Flores would stay with Minnesota than go to a situation
You
like
wait
the
another
Jets.
year or two.
Just wait it, right? Right. But if Tomlin in Pittsburgh do part ways, that would be a spot I could see him going. He's got
Mhm.
ties there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why have the headache
Right.
and everything that you did, with like Aaron Glenn is dealing with the Jets, and now
Mhm.
you're already on the hot seat. I mean, and you didn't know, am I going to make it past this year?
Right.
When you could have stayed with the Lions,
Yeah.
and the Lions would have been, possibly, was it better paid? I have no idea. I'm
Oh,
guessing he got
yeah.
paid more for the Jets,
Yeah.
obviously, but after that, then what's left after that? Now, Brian Flores can go be a head coach, say it doesn't work out. He gets fired after, let's just say it's
Mhm.
after 2 years. If that does happen in the NFL,
It
it's just
does.
a disaster with a disaster franchise and they need somebody to blame. He's gonna find another job as a defensive coordinator, but is it gonna
Yes.
be the same as what it is here in Minnesota? We
Right.
love him here in Minnesota. I saw just a ridiculous report. Um, it was from PFT,
Mhm.
you know, and it was trying to say that like some of the way that Brian Flores go about his business doesn't always fit with Minnesota nice.
Mm.
Where is he manufacturing this
Right.
information? He is loved here in Minnesota. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and honestly, he could probably stay and coach for as long as he wants as a
Yep.
defensive coordinator. You even have, some people calling for him to be a head coach here in Minnesota. And
Hmm.
now that's crazy. We're not moving off of
No.
KOC or anything like
No.
that. I mean, that's a crazy idea, but I mean, that's how much he is beloved here in Minnesota. So, I
Well,
mean,
you can
just
see his players love him.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
You
it's
know?
been a change I think he's learned over the years as far as
Yep.
his experience that he had with the Dolphins, and he's a much better coach and person for it.
Yes.
So yes, we want Brian Flores to stay, and now without him, let's just say he does go. what happens to the Vikings as far as what options that they might have. You know, I think if you move him to like the assistant head coach,
Mhm.
stuff like that, is someone like a Durante Jones who's been learning under him. He's a current passing game coordinator,
Yeah.
defensive backs coach. Has he picked up enough from Brian Flores to, because we don't want to switch to a different type of
No.
defense. We want to maintain this style of defense. So has Durante Jones picked up enough to where he's ready to be a defensive coordinator? Is someone like Mike Pettin, if we're looking within, who's the assistant head coach, can he start being a defensive coordinator or helping Durante Jones in that type of situation? Or there could be somebody like a Gerard Mayo that's out there that,
Mhm.
he was a defensive coach and he was a linebacker under Bill Belichick. So could he, he's looking for a job.
Right.
There are other head coaches out there that may be on the hot seat that could be an opportunity for them as well. So those could be options that are out there. I seen one name that was floated around, and I don't know why I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but the Atlanta Falcons head coach. Um,
Uh, yep.
but that could be an option. If they're looking, you know, for
Right.
someone to point blame at, um, that could be an option too. But I think regardless of who they go with, they're going to want to keep with the defense we got. And to me, the most sense that makes is use somebody that's already in house. That's
Yes.
part
Right.
of the
Right.
game plan all the time with
Mhm.
Brian Flores. Somebody that's uh, he's part of the flow team, if you will,
Yes. Yep.
and already has the trust with the players in that defense as far as how things are called. And I think Durante Jones or even a Mike Pedden
Mhm.
helping with Durante Jones, kind of like KOC calls the offense, right?
Yep.
That could be that type of situation that we get into. But any more thoughts on Brian Flores?
I Yeah, it would be really tough to bring somebody in with a whole different um, setup and scheme
Hmm.
with this team, right? I mean, this team is built off of that scheme. You look at even when Flores came, it took him a little bit to get
Sure.
the players he
Yeah.
wanted in there.
Different style of players, right?
It's just a different style of players,
We had to tell Daniil Hunter that, hey, you're going to move off the edge, and
right?
we're gonna be playing a 3-4 instead of a 4-3.
Yeah, I mean, I hated losing him, but he didn't match the system, right?
Hmm.
And you're like, okay, that's going to happen, and you're going to lose something, but he's got those players in there, and some of these are signed for a while, right? So then you're going to have to go through that whole transition. So I like the idea of coming up from within if he moves on, right? I think he would sit back and like you said, come back to the Vikings,
Yep.
sign a 2 year, right? Kind of a 2 year, not a 1 year deal, but a 2 year deal to show the commitment,
Hmm.
but minimum. But it's like, hey, that coaching job isn't there. What would it be? Maybe the Browns, maybe the Giants, maybe the Falcons. Depending on what they do, there's not that many great spots sitting out there.
Right.
So
Well,
I like that moving from within
since
if it happens.
we're talking about him, Daniil Hunter. So he's got like 112 sacks now, and obviously
Mhm.
most of them here in Minnesota. Uh, let's just say he plays another 4 or 5 years. Does he
Mhm.
retire as a Texan or as a Viking?
Ooh, that will depend if they win a Super Bowl.
He's got
But I think
about 90 of his sacks are with the
are here.
Vikings.
Yeah, I would say at this point he would retire as a Viking.
At this point, I
At
agree
this
with you.
point, at this
But if he
point,
wins a Super Bowl, I think that changes
that can change.
things.
Right. I'm not saying Houston's going to, but I'm saying if
Hmm.
right if they went on that could change
Yeah.
because that defense is tough as well. There's some good defenses that are going to make the playoffs this year.
Now we're at that point of the game. Do you want to give any kind of prediction on what we possibly see?
I see the Vikings coming out strong. I see the Packers playing strong. I certainly hope the Vikings don't just go, oh, we're playing against the Packer backups, and we play to the level of the backups. But in my true, taking off my purple, jersey and seeing my purple colored glasses, I still see the Vikings. JJ playing well. I'm seeing a 24-14, 24-13 kind of game, couple of field goals. So I'll go 24-13 field goals instead of a touchdown. And I'll give the running back. I don't think they'll pass for a touchdown. I was kind of sad to see Detroit get one last week. I was hoping that streak of games without giving up a passing touchdown would have kept going. But that's where I see it.
I'm going to go 34-16. I do think that this is a big offensive game for us. I think that the Packers end up kicking a lot of field goals in this one, at least when they get opportunities. I don't think that they're getting home much in this game, touchdown-wise. So I think potentially, that even might be generous to give them 16 points in this one with Clayton Tune as quarterback. I could be totally wrong. But I do see Clayton Tune possibly giving us some turnovers that put us in good field position. We get some extra opportunities to put one in the end zone, and I think we at least see a gritty, and Justin Jefferson is getting at least 53 yards in this ball game.
Here's my bold prediction: Justin's going to get over 100 yards and one touchdown. I want to say two, but I'll say one for now. My original prediction, and until I sat down and thought about it earlier today, was like 34-17. So it's very similar to yours, but I kind of backed it off a little bit just because the offense has been up and down. They can absolutely score that many. I would love to see that. I'd love to see 41 donut.
I think they're going to be moving, and I think it's a different defense that they're facing. There's no Micah Parsons. Yes, we're still banged up a little bit on the offensive line, but there's no Micah Parsons. They got some other key defensive players that are out in this game, and I think the offense not putting them maybe in the most favorable field position. I guess parts of the field during the game, I think, is going to give the Vikings the advantage, time of possession advantage, and just more opportunities to put it in. So as long as we're efficient with the ball, I think that we're going to have 3 or 4 touchdowns in this game.
I hope you're right.
On top of Will Riker doing his thing like he always does.
Yes.
So
there's my Pro Bowl snub.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Just ridiculous. Well, at least, I saw, I think Bill Barnwell put him on his all pro list, but we'll see if he's an official all pro. I got my wife and my smallest one sick at home. So it's been busy here with the flu. So it's definitely been an interesting last couple of days. So, so I haven't been spending as much time online and being able to research some of that stuff. So, all right. Well, hey, that brings us to the end of our show. Make sure that you're following us on X, Vikings Playbook. Make sure that you're following us on YouTube, Vikes Playbook. So at Vikes Playbook, go ahead and look us up on YouTube, subscribe, and set your alerts. That way you're not missing an episode. We will be having episodes even after week 18 throughout the season, probably having at least 1 or 2 a month of the Vikings Playbook, and ramping up as it gets closer to the start of the season. Of course, a little bit more frequently, closer to the draft as well. And remember, Facebook, Instagram, we're also on there too. Add us. This has been Vikings Playbook with my special guest, Mark Anderson. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm your host, Steve Hoikkala, and your Sunday starts here with Vikings Playbook. Have a good Sunday and rest of your weekend. Happy New Year to those of you I haven't already wished, and we'll see you next time. Skol Vikings.
Skol.